For example, the book notes that the five and dime giant Woolworths was a leader in the retail market for many years, but couldn't capitalize on the discount store trend because they did not want to abandon the high margin, low inventory turnover strategy. Innovation instead happened from the outside, way outside, Bentonville, Arkansas, which is why today Walmart is the world's largest retailer, while Woolworths has been out of business for more than a decade. The United States, too, has led the world for several generations, but past leadership does not guarantee future success, and in fact, the innovator's dilemma warns that it can threaten future success. So as we looked at broadband in America, we could see elements of both the fusion lag and the innovator's dilemma threatening future American leadership. Certainly competitive markets play a primary role in driving enterprises, both public and private, to take advantage of the opportunities broadband creates, and so we targeted areas where we thought government could effectively act to improve the competitiveness of the market, including the transparency stuff that Derek was talking about. There were some other things. I'll just talk about this very quickly. The set-top boxes, where I think we haven't seen the kind of innovation we ought to see in terms of integrating the traditional linear program with internet video. And it was interesting, a couple of those startups that we saw in the hall next door, and I was thinking, if what I believe will happen if we actually open up the set-top box functionality to allow a greater kind of innovation, the economic prospects for those kinds of, a couple of the startups you saw would be much greater. We also made recommendations on spectrum that we believe will drive private investment. For example, part of the, as a result of our planning process, the FCC just simply clarified its rules, which encouraged the owner of mobile satellite services spectrum to commit to building a 4G network. There are many uncertainties about it, but simply by clarifying those rules, you could have a huge impact on innovation and competitiveness, both in the broadband market and beyond, as it could produce price points that cause the low-end current DSL providers to face a choice of either lowering their price, which would be good for adoption, going to one of Greg's points earlier, or to upgrade to compete with the cable DOCSIS 3. And by the way, again, focusing on what Greg was saying about net neutrality and facilities-based competition, one of the biggest question marks will be where we know where we are today. We also know what the deployment schedule is. And one of the most interesting findings, and I don't think it was that difficult to find, but it was actually, I think, a very important finding that we released in September, was that based on current deployment, by the year 2015, cable will be offering DOCSIS 3 approximately up to 100 megs in about 90% of the country. You'll have FiOS in approximately 20% of the country. But if the applications require 50 to 100 megs, about 70% of the country will only have that from one provider. Now, I don't know that that will be the case. And we certainly, it could be that we don't build the applications that really require that. It could be that as a result of these competitive pressures, the telcos respond. It could be, and I was just reading about this this week, some people are talking about some technology that can increase the speeds of the copper loop to 200 or 300. Who knows what will happen? And one of the things we wanted to be in the planning was pretty humble about what we know and we don't know in terms of the government. But the point is that, number one, we need to monitor the situation better with data. But probably the key point from my perspective is the most important thing is spectrum policy. Because over the next decade, mobile broadband is likely to be the most critical platform for productivity gains and innovation throughout the entire economy. If we use our spectrum less efficiently than other countries, our businesses and consumers will pay more for worse service, discouraging investment across the country. So spectrum is part of the key driver to force our economy to avoid the perils of diffusion lag and the innovator's dilemma. But as with electricity, it's not adequate just to get broadband to every person, business, and community institution. If we really want to change the way America does business, we need to realign our processes for the possibilities of broadband. And in many cases, outdated, misguided regulations, I think you heard about some of them earlier with Health IT, about reimbursement policies, They threaten and hinder the development of broadband applications and these critical priorities. Benefits aren't online, government data is rarely online, few policy processes engage the public the way ours did. Our public safety networks don't utilize broadband. You already heard about health care. Doctors not certified across state lines, that kind of certification process slows it down. Telemedicine, remote monitoring, remote diagnostics, and others face the reimbursement difficulties. Changing these rules, and by the way, as with healthcare, you have very similar kind of rules challenging the use of educational material across state lines. So changing the rules is part of what we need to do to address the this fourth challenge. But the bigger part of the challenge is refocusing our public dialogue about how to seize the future. And I'm just going to close with an example that was very striking to me. A few months ago, we heard a lot about the controversy in Texas about what should be in the textbooks. There were countless hours of debate and indignation and abundant columns in newspapers and blogs dedicated to whether Texas schools should teach about the contract for America and John Calvin. I don't mean to dismiss these questions. They are no doubt important to get right. But while we focus on these questions, we are missing bigger, far more important ones. Why are we still using ink on paper textbooks? Why are we still using a medium that can only be updated occasionally at the cost of millions of dollars instead of instantly at the cost of a tap of a keyboard? Why are we still using a medium that can't integrate easy access to videos, audios, reference guides, and other resources that we know help students learn? Why are we still using a medium that can't undergo constant assessment and improvement, that can't provide materials tailored to an individual's student's need? Now, of course, I'm talking about ebooks, which will eventually replace textbooks. But we ought to be the leaders in developing a new category of broadband-delivered educational content that resembles old textbooks as closely as the movie Avatar resembled old radio programs. Something wholly different, wholly new, an immersive, almost participatory experience. And we ought to be leaders in using broadband to reinvent how we deliver health care, public safety, and other government services. But instead, I'm afraid that we're still suffering from innovator's dilemma, spending all of our time trying to optimize the methods of the past, ignoring the ways we could fundamentally change them for the future. So for those of us at the plan, and for some of you in the class of 2010, it's getting to be graduation time, and any good valedictory address issues challenges to graduates. And I think that coming out of the plan, what I get out of it is this is really the challenge for our country, to ask and answer these bigger questions, to realign our policies and processes, to realize the potential of broadband to transform the country, and to continue to lead the world in the 21st century. Thank you very much.